Do you ever wonder how the opioid epidemic started? It isn't something that started in recent years. In fact, it's been around for over 400 years. Do you ever wonder how the British Crown became so wealthy? What about the origin of corporations aligned with governments to ensure massive profits? What about the slave trade? The answer to all of these questions, interestingly enough, is the East India Trading Company. In this video, I will give a history of this company and also how it relates to drug and human trafficking, as well as the British government's involvement. Please take a second to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you enjoy this type of history exploration. I have a wide array of subjects I cover in my videos. I hope you will check them out. Thank you. On the final day of the year 1600, a group of ambitious London merchants gathered in anticipation. Their patience was rewarded when Queen Elizabeth I granted them a royal charter, an official document that would change the course of history. This charter gave them exclusive rights to trade in all territories east of the Cape of Good Hope, a vast and lucrative region stretching from the coast of Africa all the way to the islands of Indonesia, known then as the East Indies. The company was structured as a joint stock venture, a revolutionary idea for its time. Investors pooled their money, sharing both the profits and the risks, making overseas trade possible for many who could never have attempted it alone. Their bold ambition was clear: sail to the fabled Spice Islands, purchase precious cargoes of pepper, cloves, and nutmeg, and return to England to sell these exotic goods for enormous profit. The first voyage, under the command of Sir James Lancaster in 1601, was fraught with peril. The crew braved violent storms, outbreaks of disease, and fierce competition from rival European traders, all for the promise of fortune. From a modest office on Leadenhall Street in London, these merchants made decisions that would ultimately shape the destinies of entire nations and peoples. The directors, though not of noble birth or royalty, wielded immense power. They planned daring voyages, hired skilled captains, and always kept their eyes fixed on the pursuit of profit and expansion. The Royal Charter gave them a powerful monopoly, shielding them from English competition and allowing the company to grow rapidly in both wealth and influence. But the East India Company's pursuit of profit was not without controversy. Like many trading powers of the era, the company became involved in the transatlantic and Indian Ocean slave trades. Company ships sometimes transported enslaved people between Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, and the company profited from supplying labor to its colonies and trading posts. This involvement, though not as extensive as some other European powers, has left a legacy of exploitation and suffering that is still debated by historians today. At the time, no one could have imagined that this trading firm would one day command private armies, negotiate with kings, and rule over millions of people across distant lands. The charter was more than just a piece of parchment. It was the foundation stone, providing the legal and political backing needed for global operations and unprecedented expansion. With a single signature, Queen Elizabeth set in motion a chain of events that would eventually lead to the rise of the British Empire in India and far beyond. The company's monopoly allowed it to establish itself without domestic rivals, giving it the freedom to experiment, expand, and dominate trade routes. These merchants, once ordinary traders, became the unlikely architects of a future they could never have foreseen, their decisions echoing through centuries. What began as a commercial venture, driven by profit and spices, would soon become a force that changed the world, redrawing borders and shaping destinies. The seeds of empire were sown in that small London office, setting the stage for centuries of global transformation. The company's daring voyages were fueled by Europe's insatiable hunger for the treasures of the East, spices, silks, and Indian textiles that promised both luxury and profit. Spices like pepper and nutmeg were so valuable that they were often worth more than their weight in gold. Controlling the spice trade meant not just immense wealth, but also power and influence across continents. By sailing directly to places like Java and the Banda Islands, the company could bypass costly middlemen in the Middle East and Europe, securing spices at the source and maximizing their profits. Before long, Indian textiles, fine silks and brilliantly colored cotton calicos, became even more sought after in Europe than spices themselves, captivating the imagination of the elite and commoners alike. These lightweight, colorful fabrics didn't just change wardrobes, they revolutionized European fashion, sparking a craze for Indian goods that swept through society and transformed tastes. Yet, English exports like wool and tin found little demand in Asian markets, creating a persistent trade deficit that had to be paid in precious silver and gold, draining Europe's coffers. To manage this complex trade, the company established fortified trading posts, known as factories, at key ports like Surat, Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta, each one a stronghold of commerce and diplomacy. These posts became bustling hubs for negotiating with local rulers, organizing shipments, and managing the flow of goods and wealth between continents. From these coastal footholds, the company's presence steadily expanded, laying the groundwork for deeper territorial ambitions and the eventual rise of British power in the region. The constant flow of goods, silver, and people transformed both Britain and India, weaving their destinies together in ways that would shape history for centuries. What began as a quest for trade and profit would soon become the foundation of a vast empire, changing the fate of millions. The company's trading posts were not just centers of commerce, they were the first roots of British rule in Asia, marking the beginning of a new era. The East India Company began as a trading venture, seeking spices, textiles, and riches from the Indian subcontinent, but as its ships sailed further, the company soon realized that trade alone would not guarantee its survival or success. The dangers of India's political landscape, rival kingdoms, shifting alliances, and unpredictable rulers forced the company to build a private army for protection. European competitors and warring Indian states made every transaction risky, threatening both profits and lives. To safeguard its interests, the company first hired guards, mercenaries, and local soldiers. Over time, these small bands grew into well-trained regiments, with Indian sepoys led by British officers, forming a disciplined and formidable force. Military strength became not just a shield, but a powerful tool for negotiation and profit, giving the company leverage over local rulers. The company intervened in local disputes, offering military support in exchange for money, land, or exclusive trading rights, turning conflict into opportunity. If a prince couldn't pay his debts, the company simply took control of his territory, expanding its reach with every deal. By the mid-1700s, the company commanded one of the world's largest private armies, tens of thousands strong and still growing. Its three main centers, Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta, each maintained their own forces, sometimes even outmatching the official British Army in India. The line between merchant and ruler vanished, as commerce and conquest became two sides of the same coin. The company transformed into a corporate state, conquering kingdoms, collecting taxes, and ruling vast territories. Its power was unprecedented, a private firm ruling over millions, shaping the fate of an entire subcontinent. The pursuit of profit had turned traders into conquerors, and commerce into empire. The company's army was the engine of its empire, enforcing its will and expanding its reach. In the world of the East India Company, commerce and conquest became inseparable, forever changing the course of history in India. In 1757, the Battle of Plassey marked the company's transformation from traders to rulers. Bengal's Nawab, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, challenged the company's growing power by seizing Calcutta. Robert Clive led a force to retake the city and saw an opportunity to seize Bengal itself. Clive conspired with Mir Jafar, promising him the throne in exchange for betrayal. At Plassey, the Nawab's superior army was undone by rain, faulty gunpowder, and Mir Jafar's treachery. The company's small force won a swift victory. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was captured and executed. Mir Jafar became a puppet ruler. The company gained control of Bengal's vast wealth and tax revenues. Plassey was a corporate coup, not just a battle. The company's main income now came from land taxes, not trade. This victory marked the true beginning of British rule in India. A private company now governed millions. The age of corporate empire had begun. The company's conquest of Bengal made its employees rich but alarmed Britain. Reports of corruption and abuse led Parliament to intervene. The Regulating Act of 1773 created the post of Governor-General and a Supreme Court in Calcutta, imposing oversight. Pitt's India Act of 1784 established the Board of Control, giving the government authority over company affairs. The company's directors managed trade, but political decisions now required government approval. Over time, the company's commercial role faded as its administrative duties grew. Its monopoly on Indian and Chinese trade was gradually dismantled. By 1833, the company ceased all commercial activities, becoming a governing agency for Britain. The company was no longer a merchant, but a colonial administrator. Parliament's grip tightened with each renewal of the charter. The company's independence was gone. It now ruled India for the crown. After losing its trade monopolies, the East India Company turned to opium as a major source of revenue, using it to finance the import of tea from China. British demand for tea created a massive trade deficit, which was paid in silver, draining British reserves. To reverse this, the company cultivated vast opium fields in Bengal, strictly controlling production and auctioning the drug to private traders, who then smuggled it into China in exchange for silver. This trade reversed the flow of wealth, but devastated China with widespread addiction and social collapse. The Chinese government tried to halt the opium trade, but British merchants demanded protection for their lucrative business. In 1839, the First Opium War erupted after Chinese officials destroyed British-owned opium stocks. Britain's superior military crushed Chinese resistance, forcing China to submit. The Treaty of Nanking forced China to pay heavy indemnities, cede Hong Kong, and open several ports to foreign trade, including the continued opium trade. The war exposed the brutal power of Western commerce and the East India Company's role in global trade. The company's pursuit of profit had far-reaching global consequences, shaping international trade and politics. Trade, war, and addiction became deeply intertwined through the company's actions. The opium trade left a legacy of suffering and resentment in China that endures to this day. It's important to note that while the East India Company was deeply involved in the opium trade, heroin did not exist during its era. Heroin was first synthesized from morphine in 1874, decades after the company's dissolution in 1858. The company had no direct or indirect role in the heroin trade. However, its large-scale opium production laid the groundwork for the global spread of opiate use, which later included heroin after its invention in the late 19th century. By the 1850s, the company ruled most of India, but resentment simmered. High taxes, lost lands, and cultural insensitivity fueled anger. The spark came from a new rifle cartridge rumored to be greased with pig and cow fat, offensive to both Hindu and Muslim sepoys. The resulting mutiny in Meerut spread rapidly, with rebels declaring the Mughal emperor their leader. The uprising became a widespread revolt, marked by brutal violence on both sides. The company was caught off guard and struggled to regain control. British troops were sent to crush the rebellion, leading to fierce battles in Delhi, Lucknow, and Kanpur. By 1858, the British had brutally suppressed the uprising. The rebellion failed to expel the British, but destroyed the company's legitimacy. The British government could no longer trust a private corporation to rule India. The company's days were numbered. The rebellion marked the end of corporate rule. India's fate would now be decided by the crown. The 1857 rebellion sealed the company's fate. Parliament passed the Government of India Act 1858, transferring all company powers to the British Crown. The company's armies merged with the British Army. Its assets and administration were taken over by the state. The India Office was created in London, and the Governor-General became the Viceroy. Queen Victoria's proclamation promised respect for Indian rights and religious freedom. The British Raj began, ending 2 centuries of company rule. The company lingered as a shell to settle debts, but its power was gone. In 1874, the East India Company was formally dissolved. Its story of commerce, conquest, and empire had ended. The world's most powerful corporation was no more. For decades, the East India Company was a symbol of colonial greed and power. Its legacy remains in India's cities, language, and institutions. In 2010, entrepreneur Sanjeev Mehta revived the name as a luxury brand, selling fine teas and gourmet goods in London. The modern company is a shadow of its former self, trading on history and nostalgia. Its value lies in its story, a tale of ambition, violence, and transformation. The company's history is a lesson in how commerce can shape nations. Its legacy endures in both Britain and India. The new East India Company is a curious postscript to a dramatic past. The story of the world's first corporate empire continues to fascinate and warn. There are definitely stories about the East India Company's involvement in modern conflicts, such as the war in Afghanistan, the Korean War, or the Vietnam War. So to set the record straight, the East India Company was officially dissolved in 1874, long before these wars began. But remember that it was part of the British government after that. The Korean War took place between 1950 and 1953. The Vietnam War spanned from the 1950s to 1975. The war in Afghanistan began decades later in the 21st century. By the time these conflicts erupted, the East India Company had been gone for over 70 years. Again, though, it was controlled by the government. While the company's legacy continues to influence history and inspire debate, its direct actions and influence ended in the 19th century. The story of the East India Company is one of the past, a powerful lesson about the wars of our modern age. I thank you for watching and supporting my channel. Please subscribe. And as always, stay informed.